In Paraguay, popular organizations are advancing in the national mobilization heading to Asunción to demand that the government stop the displacements, indictments, and the immediate release of all social and political prisoners. The World Health Organization warned on Friday about wealthy nations hoarding COVID-19 vaccines as the new Omicron variant spreads worldwide. Hamas today honored in Gaza the 34th anniversary of its foundation, which took place in 1987 with the start of the First Intifada. Hi, this is From the South. I am your news anchor, Diego Martin, from the Telesur studios in Havana. We begin with the news. In Paraguay, popular organizations are advancing in the national mobilization heading to Asunción to demand that the government stop the displacements, the indictments, and the immediate release of all social and political prisoners. The protesters denounced that after the approval of Law 6830, or the Zavala Rayera law, the attacks on peasant communities increased with the persecution of activists, agricultural workers, and union leaders. The protesters declare that with the government indifference, the expansion of agribusiness has illegally occupied some 3.5 million hectares, affecting the environment and the expulsion of indigenous communities. The peasants, after declaring themselves in permanent strike, point out that the measures taken by the opposition senators are insufficient in view of the severity of the situation. They call on the Paraguayan people to join the protest and resist against a criminalization of the social struggle. In Argentina, citizens gathered in Plaza de Mayo in Buenos Aires to participate in the celebrations on the Democracy and Human Rights Day. It is estimated that more than 200,000 people gathered in Plaza de Mayo as part of tributes following the end of the military dictatorship in 1983. Several heads of state and government officials attended the ceremony, which also coincided with the celebration of 2 years of government of President Alberto Fernández and Vice President Cristina Fernández. Now, in Bolivia, opposition leader Marco Pumari was arrested for burning down the Departmental Electoral Tribunal in 2019. Police forces also raided offices of the Potosinista Civic Committee in compliance with a court order and arrest warrants against the current president of the institution, Juan Carlos Manuel Hualpa. Among the causes for which Pumari was arrested, the burning of public property stands out. Previously, in October 2019, violent groups attacked and burned the facilities of the Departmental Electoral Tribunal in Potosí. These actions were triggered by the civic committees that promoted the coup d'etat against the government of Evo Morales. Now, in Colombia on Monday, a toys protest to highlight child abuse was staged by the Colombian branch of SOS Children's Villages, an international non-governmental organization. Hundreds of toys were laid out in Bogotá's iconic Bolívar Square to protest against violence over children and demand more funding to help kids who grow up without their parents. Ángela Rosales, the director of the international NGO in Colombia, said that toys represent the voice of children who need help. Demands were also addressed to Colombian government to boost spending on programs that helps children facing domestic violence and do justice against child abusers.
Unfortunately, violence against children has no gender or age distinction. Although girls are more vulnerable than boys, especially in the situation of sexual abuse, it can occur from the time they are babies to any age. So we are talking about the constant violation of children's rights that happens in the environments that are called to be the most protective, and that occurs in a context where the state does not respond adequately to this situation.
And in Mexico, the number of asylum seekers killed in the accident that occurred this Thursday on a highway in the southern state of Chiapas has reached 55. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador sent condolences to the families of the deceased. Meanwhile, the Attorney General's Office of the Republic has taken over the investigations. Our correspondent Eduardo Martinez expands on it.
The overturn of a trailer traveling at high speed on Tuxtla-Chiapa de Coro Highway in the southern state of Chiapas left more than 50 people dead, including a 15-year-old minor, most of them Central American asylum seekers who were trying to reach the northern border. A total of 166 people were traveling in the truck, who, according to authorities, entered the country without documents and stayed several days in San Cristóbal de las Casas before leaving on the afternoon of December 9th. The nationalities of the injured persons were 95 from Guatemala, 1 from Honduras, 1 from Mexico, 1 from Ecuador, 3 from the Dominican Republic, and 4 undefined. There are also 19 underage persons from both Guatemala and Honduras. Moving in trailers has become a common practice among asylum seekers, who pay between $2,000 and $3,500 to travel through some Mexican states. On December 3rd, for example, 105 asylum seekers were rescued in Puebla, traveling in converted trailer boxes. In October, authorities detained 3 vehicles with 6 containers in which 634 people were traveling, and in November, a similar number were found in Veracruz. Lives have been saved. Asylum seekers have been rescued from being transported in inhumane and high-risk conditions, and fortunately, tragedies such as the one that occurred yesterday have not occurred. To avoid these tragedies, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador insisted that the causes of migration must be tackled, and he made a call to his U.S. counterparts to implement the development plan he presented during his visit to Washington, which he also presented to the UN General Assembly. We are requesting immediate action because the situation is very serious. We have had to face other cases of violence in which migrants are assaulted, and we proposed that the social programs that we are applying in Chiapas be applied urgently in Central America. In this way, he said, 350,000 people could be prevented from leaving their places of origin to seek opportunities in the north. Meanwhile, the U.S. government continues to strengthen its immigration policy, including the reactivation of the migrant protection protocols so that asylum seekers in the U.S. can wait for the outcome of the procedure in Mexico.
Eduardo Martínez, Telesur, Ciudad de México.
We'll be right back after this very short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The World Health Organization warned against renewed hoardings of vaccines by wealthy countries as the new Omicron coronavirus variant spreads across the globe. Although the number of doses being delivered to lower-income countries through the COVAX vaccine sharing program has increased in recent months, there is a good chance that richer countries will return to reducing the supply of jabs to ramp up their own booster programs. According to the Vaccine Alliance, Gavi, COVAX has shipped more than 600 million doses of vaccines to more than 100 countries or territories since February. A key problem for COVAX has been wealthy countries donating COVID-19 vaccines with a relatively short shelf life, while noting that wastage rate were also high in some wealthy countries. And on Friday, United Kingdom's officials said the country faces deeply concerning situation as Omicron coronavirus variant continued to spread at a high rate. UK Community Secretary Michael Gove expressed, "We have the highest number of COVID infections across UK recorded today since the 9th of January. He added Omicron variant was doubling every 2 to 3 days in England and possibly even faster in Scotland. 30% of coronavirus cases in London were from Omicron, despite it was identified in the UK only 2 weeks ago. Gove also stated there is evidence that Omicron was causing more hospital admissions among the fully vaccinated compared with previous variants.
And of course, we only identified the Omicron variant in this country, face a deeply concerning situation. The COBRA meeting that I just chaired with the First Ministers of all the devolved administrations was presented with some very challenging new information. We know that we have the highest number of COVID infections across the United Kingdom recorded today since the 9th of January. We know that the Omicron variant is doubling every 2 to 3 days in England and possibly even faster in Scotland. We know that 30% of reported cases in London are the Omicron variant. And of course, we only identified the Omicron variant in this country a fortnight ago. So we absolutely do need to keep everything under review. I think the approach that we're taking is proportionate. We recognize the importance of balancing people's ability to get on with their lives with the need to protect them against this virus. But action is absolutely required. And as new data comes in, we will consider what action we do require to take in the face of that data.
Cuba becomes the second country in the world with the largest population with a complete vaccination schedule against COVID-19. The Caribbean island is among the countries leading in immunization against respiratory disease. According to figures released by Oxford University, more than 10 million of its inhabitants have at least one dose of Abdala, Soberana 2 or Soberana Plus. Let us recall that since November, the anti-COVID-19 booster vaccination campaign has been underway, and more than 440,000 Cubans have already received the extra dose of protection. The largest of the Antilles stands out in the world for having managed to inoculate its young and adult population with vaccines produced entirely in the country. And Bolivia began vaccination against COVID-19 from 5 years of age onwards at a time when the country is already facing the so-called fourth wave of the pandemic. From the city of La Paz, our correspondent Freddy Morales has the details.
The announcement of including children between 5 and 11 years old to the mass vaccination campaign was made by President Luis Arce. Our specialists from the Health Ministry have worked intensively in recent weeks to gather information, evaluate studies, and international reports, and it was decided that Sinopharm vaccine, used for children in different countries, will be used for this age group. Children began to arrive at the vaccination centers. Children do not want to stay locked up in the house. They want to go out, so parents say, so maybe they get COVID-19, and that's why they, the children, say, we should get vaccinated. Moms are confident that this protection will allow children to begin to normalize their activities.
This morning we heard the news that they had already extended the age, and we've celebrated, the three of us and she even more, because we were waiting for her vaccine. The vast majority of us do the same for our children because we love them and we do not want anything bad to happen to them. I feel safer like this. They want to go out. So let's get all the children vaccinated so there will be more safety.
Although there is hope that the vaccination will allow the return to face-to-face classes as of February of next year, the health minister does not encourage such expectations. This morning I saw children at the National Health School lining up with their uniforms and their expressions saying, I want to go back to school. I want to see my friends again. To hear that is beautiful. We are not saying that vaccination will allow us to go back to school, but it is an important step. The incorporation of the new age group from 5 to 11 years old, which exceeds 1.6 million people, increases the vaccine-eligible population to more than 10 million. The country has more than 11 million inhabitants, and for the last 2 weeks has been facing the so-called fourth wave, with a constant increase in the number of new infections per day. On Wednesday, the number of infections exceeded 1,700.
Freddy Morales, Telesur, Bolivia.
We have more stories coming up after this final short break. Stay with us. Hi, welcome back to From the South. Hamas today honored in Gaza the 34th anniversary of its foundation, which took place in 1987 with the start of the First Intifada. Local sources reported that due to the serious economic crisis following the fighting last May, which caused considerable damage, the central demonstration in the main square of Gaza, where in the past more than 100,000 people gathered, has now been cancelled. This year, Hamas instead asked supporters to organize marches after Friday prayers in mosques. According to sources, these processions took place in all the main locations of the Strip, and in all they were attended by tens of thousands of people waving the green banners of the resistance movement. Tunisians protest violence against women in the capital. Dozens of Tunisians gathered in central Tunis and held a silent march carrying placards and banners protesting violence against women and calling on the government to do more to enforce laws to protect them from domestic violence. In 2017, Parliament adopted the much-praised law on eliminating violence against women, but on the ground, women continue to face an uphill struggle to obtain justice and ensure their personal safety. According to a survey from the Ministry of Women, at least 47% of them experienced domestic violence in their lifetime. These numbers have only increased with the COVID-19 pandemic. The march aims at raising awareness about support services for survivors of domestic violence and implementing campaigns in public education to change social attitudes that are conducive to violence against women. On Friday, the High Court of Justice in London approved extraditing the Australian journalist Julian Assange to the United States. As soon as the decision was known, Reporters Without Borders expressed its rejection for the possibility of extradition, saying it will bring dangerous consequences for the future of press freedom in the world. Two appeal judges accepted U.S. assurances that the WikiLeaks founder would not face the strictest measures before any trial or after conviction. The London Court of Appeal returned the case of Assange's extradition to the U.S. to a lower court in Westminster, while the WikiLeaks founder remains incarcerated. However, Assange's defense still has the right to challenge the verdict by filing an appeal. If extradited, tried, and convicted, he could be jailed for up to 175 years, although the exact sentence is difficult to estimate.
Yet the High Court decided against Julian on this occasion on the basis of political assurances, non-assurances that the U.S. has given to the UK government. I say non-assurances. Amnesty International says non-assurances. Amnesty International has analyzed these assurances and have said that they are inherently unreliable. He has been detained since the 7th of December 2010 in one form or another, 11 years. For how long can this go on? Today is International Human Rights Day. What a shame, how cynical to have this decision on this day.
The AIFE International Electronic Music Festival returns to Cuba this December for its 5th edition, bringing together artists from Latin America and Europe. We have more details with our correspondent, Lisandra Andres.
The AIFE Festival returns to the Cuban culture scene this December. More than 17 artist projects from Mexico, Spain, and the United Kingdom and Cuba will participate from December the 9th to December the 12th in the 5th edition of the event, which will be held in an online format.
Social media gives you the chance to reach a wider audience, and that is the good experience that the pandemic has brought us, which has allowed us to open up a little more on the path to reach a significant audience, even international.
As explained by its organizers, since its creation, the AIF encourages the artists who participate to investigate and deepen their knowledge of the rhythm roots of the Cuban music, a proposal that seeks to make the festival an international reference for electronic fusion where young creators of this genre in Cuba can showcase their work.
The festival has, of course, its primary objective, which is to explore the roots, to recover a little bit of the rhythms of Cuban music that are inevitably falling into oblivion. But when you combine them with electronic music, you bring them closer to new generations, and therefore you give a second life to those rhythms.
This year's edition presents a lineup with a renewed representative of the Cuban music, and also gives visibility to women in the electronic music genre. Musical performances and workshops with important artists will emerge as part of this gathering.
We are creating more and more. We're reinventing ourselves. We have merged with dance, with musicians, with other artists, with DJs. Many artistic expressions have been introduced within the festival. And that is the idea. Everything is about Cuba, from the roots to the most contemporary.
For 5 years, AIF has been working to place Cuba in the world circuit of electronic music and to bring the younger generations closer to the cultural roots of the country, with its distinctive seal of fusion between different rhythms, a festival, as its organizers assure, created in Cuba and designed for the world.
Lisandra Andrés, Telesur, La Habana, Cuba.
We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at Telstar English. You can also follow us on social media for the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telstar English, I'm Dio Martin. Thanks for watching.